The night before the wedding, Adam Lewis's ex-girlfriend asked if he could hold her one last time. Everyone looked at me awkwardly, but Adam didn't hesitate at all. He pulled her into his chest. I had followed him for 3 years, so he wasn't afraid of anything. He believed I could never leave him. So when I did walk away, he didn't care at all. He thought, the wedding is tomorrow. She'll obediently come back. He seemed to have forgotten that I, Emily Shen, am not the kind of shameless woman who clings to a man no matter how he humiliates her. And he also wasn't the only heir of the Lewis family. One day before the wedding, Adam's friends threw him a bachelor party. Amid their loud jokes, a young woman in a thin, sexy outfit held a slice of orange between her lips and pressed herself against him. Under the cheers, Adam took the orange slice from her mouth, and then their lips met. He did that right in front of me, his fiancée, without the slightest restraint. I sat quietly in the corner, watching. In this circle, Adam was the heir of Lewis Corporation, a man whose words carried weight. My Shen family did have some presence in the business world, but in his eyes, we were nothing more than nouveau riche. Of course he didn't take me seriously, because my family held a large amount of liquid capital that could fill the Lewis family's financial gaps. His mother practically acted like she was granting me a favor by allowing me to be here, giving me the right to appear with his friends, to wait until he tired of fooling around and then fulfill the duties of a proper wife, handing him back intact. So I sat in the corner without changing my expression, completely unaware of when an uninvited guest had arrived. When did you become like this? You drank so much, why doesn't your fiancé care about you at all? Adam's ex-girlfriend, Rachel Summers, her eyes full of tears, shoved aside the long-legged, fair-skinned girls clinging to him, stirring up a sharp, chaotic scene. Adam laughed in annoyance. Looking at Rachel, who was trembling with anger, he spoke coldly. Even my fiancé hasn't said anything. Who are you to lecture me? Rachel froze, then turned toward me sitting there indifferent. She forced a smile uglier than crying and lifted a glass of liquor. Fine, think of this as me overstepping, she said. Even now, I still worry about you. Maybe you've forgotten your stomach only got better because I took care of you. Even if you hate me now, you shouldn't destroy yourself like this. Adam looked disdainful at first, but when he heard those words, his hands clenched tightly. I couldn't help but sigh. The lethal pull of a man's first love is no joke. Rachel clearly sensed it too. He still cared. In a soft voice, she said, Adam, I came today just to wish you a happy wedding. I won't be at the ceremony tomorrow. I just want to know, can you hold me one last time? Her eyes were red, and she glanced at me. Her voice trembled, soft and fragile to the extreme, making it impossible for anyone to blame her. The room fell silent. The only sound left was the background music from the gold mining game I was playing on my phone. It wasn't that my heart felt nothing, but everyone knew how important Rachel was to Adam. The two of them were like leads in an idol drama, playing that endless game of you hide, I chase. Except Rachel wasn't as steadfast as Adam imagined. When she heard that the Lewis family company had run into financial trouble and Adam's mother went looking for her for help, they found her in a bar wrapped in another man's arms. She rushed into another marriage soon after. From that moment on, Rachel Summers had become nothing more than a distant moon on the horizon, completely cutting ties with Adam. If a new fiancé hadn't suddenly appeared, me, and if both families hadn't announced our wedding, she probably still wouldn't have bothered to see him. Her intentions were obvious. Everyone who knew Adam understood them even more clearly than he did himself. Unfortunately, even understanding the truth didn't mean he remained clear-headed. He would rather blame everything on his mother than admit that the woman he admired like moonlight had once ruthlessly discarded him. In the suffocating silence, Adam pulled Rachel into his chest. The veins on his hands stood out, and he bent down low, almost as if he were carefully protecting the most precious treasure in the world. Then Rachel collapsed into tears against him. Don't get married, please? You know my life hasn't been good. I'm begging you, don't leave me. Being challenged so blatantly, I could no longer remain hidden. I finally lifted my head. When our eyes met, Adam's face had already darkened like the bottom of a pot. I didn't know what he was expecting me to say. Maybe he wanted me to react like I did 3 years ago, demanding that he cut ties with his ex-girlfriend. Or maybe he expected me to be generous and give him one last night of freedom before the wedding, so I wouldn't ruin his mood. This was a business marriage. We were all merchants. No one wanted to make things difficult for anyone else. So I only thought for a second before decisively turning to leave. Just as I lowered my head to continue playing my gold mining game, I heard Adam grit his teeth, spitting out each word as if furious yet pleading at the same time. As long as you beg me, I'll listen to you. Beg him? Just like before? Beg him, his fiancée, to give me a sliver of dignity? A fire suddenly rose inside me. It seemed Adam had forgotten something. In a relationship, aside from humiliating pleas and equal negotiation, there was another way to communicate, like what I chose to do now. I lifted my phone, took a picture of the intimate scene between him and Rachel, and pressed send. That was called a threat. Adam let out a furious laugh and looked at me like I was a stranger. Do you think I'd care about something like that? As long as we increase the profit on your family's investment project? Forget my parents. Even your parents would tell you it's not worth worrying about. I smiled back and told him, "You're absolutely right. You've been trampling my dignity for years and you never cared. But just because you don't care, doesn't mean Miss Summers doesn't." I held up my phone. "I can send this to her husband, Philip Turner. I'm sure he'd be interested to know what his wife is doing tonight." The color drained from Rachel's face instantly. 3 years ago at a bar, she had thrown herself into Philip Turner's arms. At the time, Philip had just lost the wife he deeply loved. Rachel relied on her face, which resembled his late wife by at least 50%, to cling to this powerful man. She thought she would rise through pregnancy and secure her position, but less than 6 months later, news broke that Philip was searching for new beauties, each one resembling his deceased wife even more than Rachel did, and each far more skilled than she could ever hope to be. Now Rachel had no child to secure her status. If rumors spread that she was still entangled with her ex-boyfriend, she could forget about rising in the Turner household. She wouldn't even be able to keep the title of Mrs. Turner. Her lips trembled. She hurriedly tried to push Adam away, but he held her firmly against his chest. "Reputation is one thing," he said coldly. "Whether I can let go of her, that's my business. Why do you insist on making things so difficult for her? Don't forget, you're not even officially the future Mrs. Lewis yet, so don't act like you have the right to throw your weight around here. Apologize to her. Don't make me repeat myself." Adam's way of threatening me had always been the same. He simply believed I could never leave him. I smiled, then pointed at the married woman in his arms. "Fine, then I'll give her my spot. Would that make you happy?" But that position wasn't something she could take. The Lewis family would never allow a homewrecker to marry in. Rachel clearly understood that too. Her already pale face twisted as she cried so hard she nearly fainted. "I was with Adam first. I'm not a homewrecker." Before anyone could react, Adam strode violently toward me. His hand came down hard across my face, snapping my head to the side. His eyes were cold and ruthless, the same way he looked at me the day both families announced our engagement. He had stared at me then as if I were an enemy he could never forgive and warned me, "You're only a marriage arrangement. Rachel is the only true love of my life. So don't cross the line. Don't forget, your family survives only because mine lets it." 3 years ago, because of those words, I carefully avoided all of his boundaries. Unless it was to preserve the public image of both families, I never interfered with his affairs. Even when I had to use my fiancé status to chase away the women he found bothersome, outside of that, I stayed silent while he indulged in pleasure and nightlife. That was how I followed him for 3 whole years, swallowing my anger, forcing a polite smile, and letting his friends treat me like some pathetic, lovesick fool. That was Adam Lewis. Back then, my family had declined and relied on the Lewises just to survive. My parents would have begged for the chance to marry me into such a powerful household. But business had changed in the past 3 years. The Shen family had risen again. Our relationship with the Lewis family had shifted from dependence to equal cooperation. Yes, they still held the advantage, but one word from them was no longer enough to make me kneel and kowtow in gratitude. I lightly touched my left cheek as the burning sensation spread across my face. Adam might be awful, but I never thought he'd hit me because of Rachel. My lips curved slightly. I typed a few words on my phone, sent a message, and then walked out of the private room. Behind me, I could still hear his friend speaking cautiously. Adam? She actually left. His voice remained maddeningly calm, enough to make anyone sick. Tomorrow is the wedding. She'll come crawling back anyway. That position will be hers sooner or later. What's she so upset about? I stepped onto the sidewalk. The early autumn wind carried a thin chill. I tightened my coat and glanced at the message my mother had sent. After learning about Adam's disgraceful behavior tonight, she had sent me a long string of comforting words. Even when I told her, his mother hit me. It hurts. She only stayed silent for a while, before offering some polished, empty consolation. All of it meant one thing. She wanted me to be sensible, to maintain friendly relations between the two families. After all, we still wanted to do business with the Lewises. Most men are like that, she wrote. As a woman, you need to know how to tolerate certain things. In her heart, the greatest value of her daughter was securing resources and status for the family. No matter how wronged I felt, I was expected to endure it. I was a business investment she had planned for years, a high-end product she put on display. Even if there was some affection, it would never outweigh her pride or ambition. I had anticipated this reaction, yet disappointment still settled heavily in my chest. I tossed my phone and purse aside and lifted my head toward the corner of the street. A man in a dark trench coat seemed to have been waiting there for a while. He gently pressed a cold drink against my cheek, rolling it lightly back and forth before speaking softly. Adam has always been like that. Spoiled since he was a kid, everything handed to him, so he never cherishes anything. But if you stay with him, you'll never have to worry about food or clothing for the rest of your life. Unlike me, I'll never be the first choice of the Lewis family. The path I walk will never be easy. Have you really thought it through? Are you sure you want to choose me? His voice was low and husky, his bright eyes warm, yet full of depth. Even though the situation benefited him entirely, he still kindly laid out the pros and cons for me. He was Adam's half-brother, Evan Lewis. His mother had died in childbirth, and Adam's mother stepped in quickly after, with the excuse that the baby needed someone to care for him. From the beginning, she had treated Evan with distant indifference. But one day, she found a photo of Evan's late mother hidden in a safe by Evan's father. The nose, the eyes. If the pictures were placed side by side, even she might mistake one for the other. The world really was like a melodramatic novel, full of cliché stand-ins and blood-twisting plots. From that moment on, Evan became a thorn in Adam's mother's flesh, especially as he grew older and slowly revealed a natural talent for business, while Adam kept making one disastrous decision after another. The contrast between them grew so vast it stirred heavy discontent among the board and increasing pressure from senior executives. The resentment only deepened. Adam's mother, furious and determined not to let her beloved son suffer, suppressed Evan in every way she could. Under her schemes, he lost his authority in the company and ended up drowning his frustrations in a bar, where he happened to run into me, watching my cheating fiancé and getting thrown out afterward. One heartbroken, one humiliated. Looking back now, maybe we really were a perfect match. I hooked my arm through his, feeling how his body stiffened for a brief second. Then I pointed at our silhouettes reflected on a lighted billboard nearby. The two of us looked surprisingly harmonious together. Evan, I don't want to become some bargaining chip in a deal, and I doubt you want to spend the rest of your life being pushed around by that brain-dead little brother of yours. Adam was arrogant, always believing I was hopelessly infatuated and could never leave him. Compared to him, Evan was far more stable. We're helping each other, I said. No romance involved. I can offer you an olive branch. My family still has $4 million in idle capital we haven't put to use, so don't let me down. Evan's expression shifted slightly as he pulled me into his arms. No romance involved? His voice held a faint trace of regret that tugged at something in my chest. I suddenly didn't know what to say. Emily, he murmured, if you choose me, I don't need any olive branch. But to thank you, I'll give you a gift tomorrow. Evan took me to the apartment he rented in the city center. Looking out the window, I could see the LED billboard of Lewis Corporation and the glass windows of the CEO's office on the top floor. Inside, the warmth of the room made the alcohol in my system flare, filling my whole body with heat. I sprawled unceremoniously across his bed. "I'm lying on our future wedding bed. You don't mind, do you?" I teased. Evan came out of the bathroom, shaking water from his hair. "I don't mind, but I strongly suggest you put on a face mask. Otherwise, you'll regret it tomorrow. After all, tomorrow, you're supposed to be the most beautiful actress on stage." On the way back, I kept asking what gift he planned to give me tomorrow. But Evan was unbelievably tight-lipped. No matter how I pressed him, he wouldn't say a word and instead just led me out for a late-night meal. It was already past midnight, yet he showed no signs of fatigue. He carefully brought out a basin of warm water to help remove my makeup, saying he'd serve me like a professional spa therapist. After washing my face, he placed a sheet mask over it and gently massaged my temples. My phone buzzed several times. It was Adam's messages, attempting to coax me. "Rachel was drunk today and said nonsense. Don't take it to heart." He thought that as long as the heir to the Lewis family lowered his head and apologized, anyone would forgive him. Feeling irritated, I deleted his messages and turned off my phone completely. In my 20-something years of life, my childhood had been hectic but free. Then everything shifted, shackles clamped around me, and I lost all freedom. For at least 3 years tied to Adam, I never had a moment to be myself. Every second, I had to stay alert, wondering whether my fiancé would drag me into another spotlight of scandal. This world is harsh to women. If I had cheated, the media would plaster my face on the front page, and I'd become the subject of gossip over tea and dinner. And yet, the first moment Evan appeared, I felt a strange sense of shared suffering, something that allowed me to finally relax a little. His hand continued to stroke my forehead. I felt slightly uneasy and peeked through narrowed eyes, only to find his handsome face magnified in front of mine, making my heartbeat jump. He was so close that I could clearly see his eyelashes and the curve of his nose. His warm breath brushed lightly across my skin. The air between us thickened with intimacy. A man with skills like this definitely wouldn't be a proper employee in a spa. "Right, Evan?" What I really wanted to say was, if you had been the one engaged to me from the start, I probably would have liked you a lot. But I didn't say it. His situation in the Lewis family was just as tragic as mine. And in my own family, I had no voice either. I didn't want to touch his wounds. So after struggling for half a minute, blushing fiercely, I finally squeezed out one single line. "You're really handsome. When we go register for marriage, could you try not to steal all my spotlight?" When I woke, a thin blanket covered me, carrying the faint mint scent that was uniquely Evan's. I stared at the ticking clock on the wall, unease swelling inside me. Switching the groom at the last minute. The wild idea suddenly jumped into my head. Would Evan really be willing to cooperate with me? Would everything go smoothly? Would the Lewis family agree? He, however, didn't seem worried at all. He took a silk scarf from the drawer and gently draped it around my neck before taking my hand and leading me out of the apartment. He dropped me off at the wedding venue, then headed straight to the Lewis estate for negotiations. My heart was a mess of nerves, yet I still slipped into the pristine white wedding dress. I didn't know how long had passed when Adam finally appeared outside the dressing room, acting like nothing had happened. It was the first time he'd ever seen me in a wedding dress. His eyes, which initially held a flicker of guilt, suddenly flashed with faint admiration. Perhaps because his mother had lectured him, he seemed a little more respectful than usual. Standing behind me, his voice was calm, almost relaxed. "I drank too much last night, but we're getting married anyway. Basically, I've given you some face." As he spoke, he looked slightly self-conscious. I didn't need to guess to know he'd spent the whole night tangled up with Rachel Summers. Face. Always face. These wealthy families believed that as long as they preserved face, all the filth behind the scenes could be ignored. "Adam, you don't need to explain. Maybe you won't believe me, but I don't care." He frowned. Maybe because he still had a faint trace of rare guilt, Adam didn't continue pressuring me. He even tried to come closer, only to be shooed out by the makeup artist. That was when he put on a sorrowful, tender expression, and before leaving, he stammered, "Believe it or not, last night, she and I didn't go all the way." "Hugging and kissing doesn't count as going all the way," he said naturally, as if simply avoiding the final step made him a perfectly decent, flawless man. Ridiculous. He clearly hadn't checked the bar's security footage yet. The video of him and Rachel Summers tangled together had already been leaked to the press. And once the media knew, the social elite would know too. Rachel's husband, Philip Turner, would absolutely not let her off so easily, which was why I was certain she would choose to run back to Adam, no matter the cost, desperate to reclaim him. My phone began vibrating non-stop. As expected, the messages pouring in read, "The wedding dress you're wearing is the one Adam personally designed for me back then. Did you know that?" Rachel's barrage of intimidation attempts filled my screen. That was when I suddenly realized what surprising gift Evan intended to give me today. I couldn't stop the corner of my lips from lifting. Adam Lewis, oh Adam Lewis, faced with money and moonlight, I wonder which one you'll choose. When the wedding music played and guests took their seats, I stepped forward in my elegant mermaid-style gown, preparing to walk toward the center of the aisle. And then, finally, the unexpected incident I'd been hoping for happened, relieving me of the suffocating weight in my chest. Even if the ceremony had to stop here, I wasn't going to vow my life to Adam. It would be too unlucky to marry him. Rachel Summers burst into the wedding hall wearing a wedding dress identical to mine, then shouted toward Adam, "Adam, because I was too weak back then, I missed my chance. I don't want to lose you again in this lifetime." She wasn't wrong. The dress looked perfect on her. It had indeed been tailored to her measurements. But the thin, form-fitting fabric clung to her body, revealing a slight curve in her lower abdomen. She lifted her belly as if showing off. "Our baby is already 13 weeks old. Even if the Lewis family refuses to accept me, surely you won't reject your first grandchild?" I froze. I hadn't expected Rachel to be pregnant. For 3 years, I had never once wished Adam would love me. I had never imagined he would stay faithful for me. But I truly didn't expect that he couldn't even offer me the bare minimum of respect due to a business fiancé. How laughable. High society marriage alliances had one, and only one, non-negotiable rule. Not fidelity. But no children out of wedlock, and Adam couldn't even manage that. I changed direction and walked straight to him. Then I slapped him with all my strength. "Adam Lewis, giving you just one slap is letting you off lightly." Rachel Summers, legally, was still the wife of CEO Philip Turner. If this news spread after my wedding with Adam, it wouldn't only destroy the already fragile Lewis family, my family would also be publicly humiliated and dragged through the mud. How dare he? Behind me, a few bridesmaids, daughters of wealthy families I was close with, muttered in low, sharp voices. 13 weeks, and her belly is already that big? Looks like she stuffed a pillow under there. There are so many women desperately trying to marry into powerful families these days, no scheme is too shameless. "Don't try so hard, sweetheart, we're not buying it." The girls, Ruth. The bridesmaids spoke without the slightest restraint, not caring that members of the Lewis family were standing right there. Adam's expression grew darker by the second. The moonlight he had cherished in his heart for years was being described as a gold-digging woman who would stop at nothing. And the worst part was that he couldn't afford to offend the people saying it. Anyone could imagine how humiliating that felt. "Emily, I'll explain everything to you." I didn't. "You didn't what?" I snapped. "You dare swear you didn't sleep with her? Or do we have to wait until the reporters leak your bedroom photos before you'll admit it?" But she shouldn't have gotten pregnant. This time, she really acted recklessly. Adam had only spoken halfway when Rachel Summers, standing below the stage, suddenly raised a stack of ultrasound results. Gasps filled the hall. Even if she had stuffed something under her dress, the papers didn't lie. She really was 13 weeks pregnant. And the tabloids had already exposed her ambiguous entanglement with Adam to the entire country. Adam's face turned completely pale. He couldn't say a word. 13 weeks. Exactly the time when Adam and I had publicly announced our engagement. Adam couldn't let go of his bright moonlight, and Rachel couldn't forget the feeling of being cherished in his palms. So the two of them rushed back into bed together, making up as if nothing had ever happened. Guests throughout the hall erupted in noise. Whispers rose like a storm. Adam's mother trembled with rage, grabbing a glass and throwing it at Rachel. Perhaps the scene made Adam think of all the times Rachel had been tormented by his mother because of him. Acting on instinct, he rushed down to shield her in his arms. Once again, he made me a laughingstock in front of everyone. Once again, he crushed my dignity beneath his feet. "Adam, do you even know what you're doing?" his mother screamed. The shrillness of her voice snapped a sliver of reason back into him. Slowly, too slowly, he loosened his grip on Rachel. But it was already far too late. The moment Rachel appeared in a wedding dress, social media exploded. Reporters stationed outside, sharp-eyed as always, immediately released the breaking story. Adam's position at Lewis Corporation had never been stable. He held it only because of his parents' influence and the Shen family's support. And now, after Rachel's stunt, he could forget about any promotion. Even his role as vice president was at risk. Below the stage, I saw my mother clenching her hands until her knuckles turned white. Her face, normally well-maintained, was flushed red. Perhaps she remembered her own wedding years ago when her husband's scandal with a yacht attendant made headlines. Even though they had suppressed the story, the upper-class ladies still mocked her for years. Standing far away, she looked at me with tears falling down her cheeks. Judging by her lip movements, she was calling my childhood nickname with heartbroken anguish. But I didn't know whether she was grieving for me or mourning the dignity she had just lost. I pinched my arm hard, forcing tears to gather. Then, in front of everyone, I let myself collapse into a warm embrace as if fainting from heartbreak. I became the injured bride who fainted at the scene and was rushed to a hospital in the Western District. Even though the Lewis family tried desperately to suppress the news, blurry photos and a short audio recording still leaked. Soon, the entire city knew. People speculated endlessly about whether the Lewis and Shen families would break ties. I sat on the hospital bed, facing the reporters' cameras, and calmly announced, "Thank you for your concern and attention regarding our situation." I said, "I am my parents' daughter. They raised me for so many years. How could I destroy all their hard work just because of a moment of humiliation?" I told the reporters I believed the Lewis family would give us a reasonable explanation. The Shen and Lewis families had cooperated for years. Even if the balance of power in the market had shifted, partnerships shouldn't break based on who was stronger or who loved whom more. Everyone understood clearly that if the two families were forced apart now, both would lose a layer of flesh. As the eldest daughter of the Shen family and the victim of this engagement scandal, I still appeared before the cameras with a tired but composed smile, insisting on thinking for the sake of both families. To anyone watching, the image was deeply sympathetic. My parents visited the hospital several times. Of course, they saw right through my performance, but they didn't say a word. Under my manipulation, public sympathy for the Shen family surged to its peak, and our stock value rose significantly. People who benefit have no complaints. That was one of the many lessons I'd learned over the years from observing my younger brother. One warm afternoon, my mother helped fix a few stray strands of hair near my temple, then placed the household registration booklet into my hands. There was hesitation in her eyes as she spoke in a heavy tone. "Emily, I know life in a wealthy family isn't easy. If you're not happy, even if you marry, Mom," I interrupted, "you don't have to say it. The Lewis family has no other daughters. They can't let your precious son bend over and hand himself to someone else." The moment the words left my mouth, even I was startled. I thought I no longer felt anything, yet my tone still carried a trace of resentment. My mother froze, then looked straight into my calm eyes. I continued, "For my brother's sake, no matter what, you would always choose to sacrifice my happiness. Isn't that right?" She avoided my gaze, said nothing more, and quietly left the hospital room. As the door opened, she crossed paths with the Lewis family's reasonable explanation. Evan Lewis walked in with a bouquet of flowers and nodded politely to her. Sunlight fell across his shoulders, making him look exceptionally warm. He seemed tired, his hair slightly messy. After placing the flowers by my bed, he began peeling an apple for me. "Evan, thank you," I said, "but I don't really like apples." He paused. Your mother brought them, right? She didn't know you hate apples. I'm sorry, Evan. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Silence drifted between us. Looking at his exhausted face, I asked softly, "You must be so tired, aren't you?" He hesitated, then forced a small smile. "I'm fine. I was thinking about what you said, that I shouldn't steal your spotlight on our marriage registration day. So last night, I purposely didn't sleep." He placed the household booklet on the nightstand, then took out a delicate ring. "Even if this is a partnership," he said gently, "you still deserve a formal proposal. Emily, thank you. Thank you for choosing me when I had nothing. To share hardship with you would be the greatest honor of my life." His posture was humble as he lifted my hand and placed a soft kiss on the back of it. He didn't force me to wear the ring on my left hand. On his own, however, he was already wearing a matching band, as if silently declaring that he was willing to be bound to me for life. The prenuptial agreement stated clearly that Evan would voluntarily transfer 10% of Lewis Corporation's shares to my father before the marriage. "I don't have much now," he said, "but I'll give you everything I have." If Adam's mother ever heard Evan say those words, she would probably die of fury on the spot. 10% of a publicly listed corporation, for an individual, that amount was enormous. Even Adam's mother, after more than 20 years of maneuvering from the shadows, only held 3%. I couldn't stop the tears that spilled from my eyes. I had pretended not to fight or compete for so long that when someone willingly laid down their heart and soul in front of me, I couldn't help but be moved. "I accept," I whispered. My fingertips trembled as I slid the diamond ring onto my left ring finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. It was designed just for me. For once, I didn't have to wear something that belonged to someone else. "Emily, what are you two doing?" The hospital door swung open. Adam stood there carrying a bag of apples, his face pale as wax. Evan didn't even bother glancing at him. He simply admired the ring on my hand and smiled with satisfaction. "It suits you perfectly. This was designed exclusively for you. No one will ever wear something identical," it's meta, then show up flaunting it in front of you. Even without looking back, Evan's tone dripped with mockery. Adam's voice shook. "That wedding dress Rachel wore, I can explain. She used my phone to contact the designer. I never." His explanation was clumsy and half-hearted. Fortunately, I no longer cared. After the farce that ruined our wedding day, Adam was confined by his father. This time he truly suffered a major blow. The scandal caused chaos at Lewis Corporation, and if Evan hadn't stepped in to handle the crisis, the damage would have been far worse. Adam was temporarily suspended, his responsibilities reassigned to subordinates. Evan, having saved the company, was directly appointed to replace him. His competence and contributions were undeniable. He was now shining at the peak of his career. Even Adam's mother couldn't stop it. All her protests stirred up no waves. Rumor had it she quarreled with Adam's father. "He's just an illegitimate child. Why aren't you helping your real son? Why are you helping that one instead?" she screamed. Father Lewis's response was ice cold. "Compared to Evan, Adam is the illegitimate one in my eyes. If your eyes didn't resemble my first wife's, do you think you could have stepped into this family at all? As for her death, you might fool me for a moment, but you won't fool me forever. I've paid my debts to you and your son over the years. We're square." Adam's mother collapsed onto the floor, defeated. In the end, the winner and loser were laid bare. In the days before, she had come to the hospital several times. I pretended to faint right in front of her and leaked embellished details to the media. Whether Adam visited secretly or because his mother pushed him to make one last attempt, I no longer cared. Adam Lewis. It wasn't as if I never gave you a chance. I gave you 3 years of my life. You were the one who didn't cherish them. Who should you blame now? Evan and I went openly and proudly to register our marriage. When I looked at our photo on the marriage certificate, I finally exhaled, truly relieved. The wedding ceremony was set for early next spring. Riding the momentum of our marriage, the Lewis family could launch their new season products. Because of all the preparations, Evan was running everywhere at work, barely finding time to breathe. Yet whenever he came home, he insisted on personally deciding countless details of the wedding. Meanwhile, I poured my full effort into coordinating the public relations for the new product line, terrified something might go wrong. After all, if an issue, this business project carried the Shen family's $4 million investment. I had to maximize profits no matter what. As long as the stock price and revenue rose together, I would become the happiest woman alive. Every time we discussed the wedding, he talked about his plans and I talked about mine, until Evan finally looked at me with a wounded expression. So, compared to the wedding I'm planning for us, do you prefer the one Adam prepared for you? Oh, shut up, Evan. What nonsense are you thinking? In the end, we spent the entire night drafting our wedding gift registry and went to work the next morning with matching panda eyes. Time flew like an arrow. The closer the wedding approached, the more unreal everything felt. Happiness made me lightheaded, so happy it scared me. The more I liked Evan, the more frightened I became. The more frightened I became, the more I wanted to run. I went to a counseling office, and the therapist told me gently, "You can try accepting someone's love. Enjoy the process of loving and being loved. Being together or separating, both are part of life. Your emotions and your wounds are natural." When my younger brother was born, my parents seemed to reclaim all the love they had ever given me in just one night. My clearest memory was the day I bit into an apple, and the noise woke the baby. My father whipped me across the back, my skin burned like fire. I cried loudly, only to receive a slap from my mother. "Stop crying, you'll wake the baby again." Since then, I've been terrified of receiving love, afraid that one day, without warning, it would be snatched away. I hid my heart carefully, terrified of falling into a beautiful illusion and waking to find myself standing at the edge of a cliff. But strangely, nothing about being with Evan ever felt like walking on thin ice. One day I suddenly realized there was already a smile spreading across my face. I began focusing on cherishing peaceful, happy, everyday life. I no longer thought about whether our marriage would suddenly collapse someday. Tonight, the photography studio delivered our wedding photos. After thinking for a long time, I selected a few and posted them on my social feed. As I hit post, I hugged my phone to my chest, feeling my heart thump like a battlefield drum. Then Evan posted a collage of 9 photos on his page. Every single one of them was me. I had expected that crazy person Adam might show up after seeing the posts. But I didn't expect Rachel Summers to appear first, blocking the doorway to my home. After registering our marriage, I had moved directly into Evan's downtown apartment. Almost no one knew that. I posted on social media only yesterday, yet today Rachel had somehow found our address. It was 8:30 p.m. after work when I arrived with a bag of Crazy Thursday fried chicken, only to find her kneeling in front of my door. The once arrogant and proud woman was now begging me for a way out. She said that as long as I remained angry, Adam would never spare her. "You clearly love Adam, and he loves you like mad," she sobbed. "Why force yourself to marry someone you don't even like? Adam said if you come back, he'll take me and the baby abroad to settle down. Please, I'm begging you. Save my life. Have mercy." Hearing her assumptions, irritation flared in me. Who was she to claim I didn't like Evan? I looked down at her from above with a hint of pity. She was a girl without any real backing, using every trick she knew to squeeze into high society. Unfortunately for her, after stepping into that world, she had spent so many years clawing her way into high society, yet she still didn't understand it at all. In the past, I had grown angry countless times, but had Adam ever truly stood on my side? He had merely thrown all his current frustrations onto Rachel, 2 empty-handed people, clinging to each other. And as for me, why should I ever take back a man who had betrayed me? A mocking smile rose on my lips. I looked at Rachel Summers and said, "I'm not like you. I have zero interest in a man who's betrayed me. But you don't have to depend entirely on him either. I can help you stay in the UK. If I want, you can live there for the rest of your life. You won't have to come back. Do you want that?" Rachel's face flushed with humiliation, her mouth opening and closing without forming a single word. "Why wouldn't you?" I continued, afraid you might actually have to stay abroad forever and never return. Her pregnant body was already heavy, and when she got up to leave, her figure wobbled awkwardly down the hallway. She practically ran for her life. On the wedding day, I wore the world's only diamond ring and a one-of-a-kind gown. I had specifically instructed the designer to add a hidden pocket inside the dress so that before walking onto the stage, I could take out my phone and handle business whenever necessary. Which was why the comedy began. The groom, overflowing with joy and tears in his eyes, prepared to kiss the bride. Meanwhile, the bride, having just received news that our company's new product line had sold out, grinned so widely that Evan couldn't even find a good angle to kiss me. When the officiant asked for the second time, "Do you take him?" I blurted out, "Yes, yes, yes, I do." With storm clouds gathering on his face, Evan covered our faces with the bouquet and kissed me hard. The ceremony was held by the sea. There were no formalities of a traditional banquet, just a simple ritual before guests wandered freely along the private beachfront. Security was strict. No unwanted visitors could possibly intrude. Yet Philip Turner still appeared. He exchanged a few polite greetings with us, and beside him stood a young woman who resembled his late wife even more than Rachel ever had. Big, clear eyes, soft and obedient, clinging gently to his arm. She looked harmless, but privately she had spent a significant sum to make Rachel's life in Britain miserable. So miserable that Rachel had nearly wandered the streets heavily pregnant. Because Rachel's pregnancy was at a sensitive stage, the new woman was terrified that the baby might be recognized as Philip's heir. So she used every trick in the book to pressure Rachel. And Adam, who had once promised Rachel a luxurious, carefree life abroad, turned a blind eye to all of it. He wasn't foolish enough to offend the woman destined to become the next Mrs. Turner for the sake of someone who once betrayed him. Adam approached us with a glass of champagne in hand, his gaze fixed on my slightly swollen lips, a complicated expression twisting his face. I downed my drink smoothly and looked back at him as though he were a half-deflated balloon, pathetic and ridiculous. "Emily," he began. "You should call her sister-in-law," Evan interrupted firmly, leaving Adam unable to maintain even the pretense of a polite smile. "If Rachel hadn't ruined the last ceremony," Adam muttered, eyes turning red, "we would already be husband and wife by now." He looked as though he loved me to the bone, but what did that matter? The truth was simple. The only reason he was hurting now was because someone as arrogant as him had suddenly lost both me and Rachel at once. "Why pretend at heartbreak? I really meant it," he insisted. "After marriage, I plan to be sincere to you." I let out a short, cold laugh. "Sincere?" I repeated. "Does sincerity mean keeping a mistress abroad, or somewhere I can't find, while still living peacefully with me?" He inhaled sharply, stunned speechless. Then he said with an almost painfully sincere tone, "Believe it or not, it only happened because I was drunk. It was just once, and I used protection. Her baby isn't mine." Oh, when Adam finally staggered away like a hollowed-out soul, Evan wrapped an arm around my shoulders and said sourly, "You probably don't know this, but what he said is impossible. Rachel Summers didn't break in on her own. I brought her. And the video of them, yeah, I handed that to the reporters." He lifted his glass and added, "As long as I'm here, he never had a chance to complete that wedding." "You ruined my wedding with Adam. Isn't your wife going to be angry?" I asked, clinking my glass against his before gently brushing my hand across his cheek to comfort him. He raised a brow. "She won't be angry. After all, the day Adam ran into Rachel, you were the one who poked holes in his condoms." I laughed. "Exactly. We really are a perfect match." Evan's voice softened. "I've had feelings for you for a long time." At the end of the story, even after we married, everyone still assumed Evan and I wouldn't end well. Even my own father, Mr. Shen, thought so. Once, during a business banquet, a few executives tried to curry favor by slipping me their business cards. One card had a lipstick mark on the back, its meaning obvious. Evan didn't seem jealous at all. He even chatted with his assistant as usual. But inside, a sour ache twisted through me. Maybe he didn't know. I had liked her for a very long time, he thought. Years ago, when she accompanied her parents to the Lewis estate, she was nothing more than a bargaining chip in an arranged marriage negotiation. In her eyes there was frost, and beneath that, a stubborn flame. She was like a blade of grass that refused to bow, growing fierce and strong in a cruel environment. Later he learned she had a younger brother, 10 years her junior. The boy lacked ambition, yet because he was the only son, he was naturally designated the heir. People who heard about her family shook their heads and muttered words like archaic and backward. Evan's father and stepmother had looked down on the Shen family as newly rich and unworthy of Adam Lewis. They pushed Evan into the engagement instead, his stepmother wearing a fake smile as though she believed forcing him to marry a nouveau rich girl would make him suffer. But what she didn't know was that while he pretended to swallow the humiliation, he was secretly overjoyed. And overly happy people often slip. Somehow, Adam managed to see through his thoughts. Evan remembered clearly how he had persuaded his stepmother to switch the engagement from him to Adam. And for the next 3 years, he watched Emily follow behind Adam, enduring humiliation after humiliation, each one cutting deeper than the last. Yet, he could do nothing except endure and wait. He always stayed near, not too close, not too far, hoping and praying that one day he would be the one she chose. His persistence wasn't wasted. Eventually, he discovered Teresa Hale, a girl who resembled Rachel Summers by nearly 80%, but was 8 years younger. Evan arranged for her to appear before Philip Turner, praising her deep devotion to Philip's late wife. Then he leaked the date and location of the Lewis Shen wedding to Rachel. As expected, Rachel, long since deprived of Philip's affection, rushed to find Adam the moment she heard the news. And when Evan received the message from Emily, saying she wanted to cooperate, he slammed the gas pedal so hard his tires burned. He felt like a proud peacock fanning its tail, eager to rip out his own heart and lungs if necessary just to offer her the best things in the world. On the day he proposed, Emily had asked, "Why do you look so tired?" He was terrified, so he only said, "I just didn't want to steal your spotlight." Steal her spotlight on the marriage registration day. What kind of ridiculous excuse was that? The truth was, I had been so excited, I couldn't sleep the entire night. The butler even caught me on the balcony rehearsing my proposal lines, so nervous I bumped my head into the doorframe. But none of that mattered, because she said yes. She said she had liked me for a long time too. What she didn't know was that even before she realized her own feelings, I had already been inching toward her, step by step, with everything I had. I snapped back to reality, handed the business card back to the director who'd slipped it to me, and pulled Emily's assistant aside. I instructed her to put those filthy men who had given me cards on the blacklist immediately. The assistant blinked innocently. "Mr. Lewis, it's been a long time since I've seen President Shen smile like that. The last time she smiled that way was when she said she wanted to bankrupt Warren Corporation this winter. I promised her a raise if she would speak kindly about me in front of Emily. After all, my Emily worked constantly. She spent more time with her assistant than with me. According to the assistant, Emily had said that any man bold enough to hand me a business card should pay a heavy price. Something cutthroat. So she cared about me that much. Knowing that filled me with overwhelming happiness. Do you believe that walking away at the right time is an act of self-love? Love and Lies story.